Radio TTS type story with Mr. GreatStory. Therapists of Reddit. What is the number one thing parents did to screw up their kid, so they had to seek help in adulthood? Behavioral therapist here. Catch your kids being good. Parents are always telling kids what they did wrong. You have to balance it out by telling them what they are doing right. Psychologist here. Parents are frequently their child's first bully. One thing is probably being too distracted by addictions, grief, mental health issues to be emotionally present for their child. Too many adults walking around unaware of their worth because they were never shown or told that they matter. Actual therapist. Failing to admit it when you're wrong. Kids need to see adults fail, and that be okay. Take your lumps with grace and they'll learn to do the same as they get older. Fight and deny, and they'll do two things. Never learn that it's okay to make mistakes, therefore stressing out if they do, or worrying that they might never learn to admit those mistakes and end up being huge fucking nuisances. Therapist here. LMFT. Probably the biggest and most common fuck up I see is parents shaming their child for having their own identity and personal interests separate from the parent or parents. Just support your kid and don't try to force them to be someone they're not. Don't call them weird or tell them their likes are stupid. Show interest in the things they like and let them teach you about those things. Also, don't take it personally if your child is not an exact replica of you. Kids are human, and like all humans, despite all our similarities, there are vast differences as well. You can learn to celebrate and value those differences, or everyone can be miserable. Therapist here also. I see a number of teens in some of the things I have noticed in the population that really does a number on them are parents failing to keep their promises and consistently repeating the promises and never fulfill them. When your child does something wrong, don't sweep it under the carpet, be passive aggressive or stonewalling, not trusting them enough, always in helicopter mode, not validating their feelings. Hey, it is okay you are angry. Anger is an emotion. Your kids have the right to feel that. This also goes for not encouraging them to discuss their emotions, not apologizing when you should. You are a human as much as your child, irrespective of how old he or she is. When you are in the wrong, say sorry and talk about what you can do differently next time. You are setting a positive model for your child. Please remember, lack of communication. I cannot even emphasize enough how many teens I see or clients, in general, lack communication skills. Therapist here. The most common thing I hear from clients is they never had proper modeling of emotions, and they now have the inability to identify or articulate their own emotions effectively. The most common intervention I use with clients is to show them the wheel of emotion and encourage them to check in with it a few times a day. I like to do it when I refill my water bottle. Actual therapists here not offering their children unconditional love. When a child does something wrong, it's important to explain to them what they've done wrong. It's a matter of saying back, quote, I love you, so I want to explain why this is an issue for me. Parents need to be open to a conversation with their children about why something is an issue, instead of storming off or shouting at them. Children need to feel loved no matter what. That's honestly the most valuable thing I've learned as a therapist. Social worker for 25 years. Inconsistencies. Poor kiddo never knows how to react because they never get a consistent response. Edit. Thanks for the awards, Redditors. This blew up much more than I expected. Ignoring a child's emotional life by scolding them for having one or telling them to suck it up. It's remarkable the amount of clients I see that need to learn that having feelings is okay and not a cause for alarm or punishment. Constant invalidation. You shouldn't feel sad. You are being too hyper and that is why you are being punished. Seems innocent enough even without context. Shouldn't feel sad is a problematic statement though. People feel what they feel, no matter the context. So you need to talk to your child. Why are you sad? Is it because you are being punished? Timeout won't last forever. You only have 1 minute left. I still love you, blah blah blah. Whatever works for your family dynamic. But children need to be able to appropriately label their feelings from a young age. I'm sad because I didn't get what I wanted. I can do better in the future and maybe get what I want. Boom. I'm out of a job. Hint, there are many parents who cannot do this, and they cannot teach their children to do it either. I used to work as a counselor. The thing that stood out the most to me was the number of people, usually women and the oldest female sibling, who were saddled with the leftover parenting duties the actual parents couldn't handle, whether it was babysitting all the time, being the parent's shoulder to cry on, being responsible for all of the housework, dealing with the financial burden of raising a family. This led to wonderful smart young women who were so used to caring for everyone else, being the rock, that their teenage years/childhoods were essentially non-existent and their adult relationships suffered as a result. From memory, it's called parentification, and it is incredibly unfair young people find themselves in this type of situation. Therapist here, not being emotionally available to the child. The child needs love, recognition, and the feeling of security. Even good parents who are unable to be emotionally available or show feelings can negatively impact the child. Not only will the child not have their feelings responded to or reciprocated, leading to more dysfunctional coping mechanisms, they won't have the blueprint of how to soothe themselves or their own children in time, perpetuating the experience. Clinical psychologist here, failing to show the proper range of different levels of emotions. A lot of parents only show their emotions when they explode from flow over with emotions. I see a lot of patients who only saw outbursts, 10 out of 10, or total avoidance of emotions, 0 out of 10. But they never saw their parents be sad or angry on a level 4 or 6, basically show anger or fear in a normal way. Actual children's therapist here. I had a client's parents drop services because they had gotten an intro to psychology book and the client was already 7. It's too late for them. It's past their critical development period. I'm a family therapist, and scapegoating is what I see as the most long-lasting for any kid. Imagine being in a family and everyone is essentially doing similar things you're doing, but you are 100% blamed for the dysfunction. It makes kids feel worthless and have a long-lasting complex of not being good enough as they essentially try to appease parents that just won't ever see their value. Not a therapist, but speaking from experience. If you ignore the signs of your child's obvious neurological/cognitive disorders because you don't want to have to change your own daily routine to accommodate your child's needs and/or because you don't want to be seen as those parents with the special kid, then congratulations. You didn't have to be the parents with the special kid. Now you have to be the parents with the special adult who still lives in your house and will require daily care for the rest of their life for conditions you failed to treat in the formative years. Thank you and have a nice day. There are a few things. Cried out and other forms of emotional disconnection/neglect. Look into Dr. Bruce Perez's work on the impacts of neglect. Controlling behaviors. It backfires. Have a chunky kid. Do not try and control the food. Look at the underlying purpose of overeating. Controlling access to food will develop an unhealthy relationship with food. Reduce the amount you praise your kids. It's not awful, but encouragement is far more effective. You worked hard on that. You must be proud vs you're amazing. Neglect in general. Abuse sucks, but at a minimum, the victim can sometimes externalize their experience, although most often they will internalize regardless. But neglect, that's damn near guaranteed internalized victimization. Ongoing trauma. Seeing your mom get a black eye or getting hit by a parent one time is easier to dismiss than constant abuse/mistreatment. Even if the constant abuse is less harsh, it is the normalization of the behavior. Edit. Whoops. Just needed #1. #1 is my answer. Edit 2. I'm changing stop praising your kids to reduce praising. Praise is important, but only in small doses. Not a therapist, but with the amount of therapy I've been through I should be by now. Neglect. I was the kid that wore the same clothes for months, unwashed, sleeping in pea-soaked sheets, with fleas, going hungry. Unsurprisingly, I have worked hard for years to overcome super low self-esteem and addiction issues, food hoarding and other self-preserving behaviors as well. Active and repetitive mental/physical/emotional abuse. Do I need to explain this? Lack of emotional expression. For example, when a kid gets hurt and a parent says, "You're fine, don't be such a pussy." Or completely invalidating emotions. If a kid says "I'm sad" and the parent says, "You have nothing to be sad about," It just sets up the idea that what you're feeling isn't right or real or valid, compounded by deciding to share your internal experience isn't worth it anymore. This one really messed me up a lot. Took years to even be able to label my emotions, let alone tell someone else about them. Therapist. Here the most common issue I come across us enabling children. Some parents have the ability to actually make excuses or reasons for every challenging behavior and place blame on other people. They are more interested in being seen as friends with their kids than actually parenting and seeing that their children are learning/making mistakes. It creates a type of child that is a lazy perfectionist, unwilling to be accountable or try anything outside of their comfort zone. I fear adulthood for these kids. Thank you for watching. Tell me which one was your favorite. Like, subscribe and hit that notification bell for more. The next video will be even more interesting. You are a legend.